Okay, once again, how are you students? Are we at the closing of the academic year? And I'm bringing to you this part of the lecture just to complement what was covered in the classroom. So I'll take a couple of minutes to highlight some of the issues which I've seen is very important for you to cover as part of preparing to be a professional teachers. So my today's lecture is on teacher professionalism, and I will be specifically discussing the so-called professional ethics in education. When you talk about a professional ethics, what comes in your mind? Professional ethics is an applied ethics that embeds professionalism in the ethical conduct process. And for that case, it encompasses the personal and the corporate standards of behavior, always expected by the professional teachers. When the term, let me highlight some of the issues here. We talk about a corporate and personal. That is, when you are conducting as a professional, we expect to see some of the ethical issues regarding your personal conduct, but also to the company to which you are working to. And for you teachers, we expect that you work very hard and very professional towards fulfilling the organization goals. So with corporate, I'm referring corporate standards, I'm referring to rules, regulation, and the standards established by the school as an organization. And therefore, a professional teacher is actually one we expect to demonstrate high standards of performance personally, but also by abiding to the institutional standards. So, professional ethics, they are defined as a set of rules that a member of a profession must abide to be professionally accepted. We talk about a professional teacher. To be a professional teacher, you are acceptable, not because society accepts you in the forefront, but because you have fulfilled some of the issues which is expected by any teacher who is professionally prepared to work in the field of teaching and the learning fields. And therefore, I will try to highlight types of teacher profession which are known globally. Actually, we have almost 4 types of teacher professionalism. One is the so-called traditional teacher professionalism, which covers teachers' rights and obligations to determine. We define traditional teacher professionalism as teachers' rights and obligation to determine their own tasks in the classroom. That is the way in which teachers develop, negotiate, use, and control their own knowledge in the course of delivering education to anticipation of the society. Every society has got anticipation, expectation from educational providers. So when you attempt to meet what the society needs in terms of knowledge delivery, we say that you are practicing the so-called traditional teacher professionalism. In the same case, managerial teacher professionalism, this refers to a process through which, in the conduct of your professional activities, you are trying to meet market demand. Say that it is through marketization and increased surveillance by the state decisions about what to teach, how to assess students and made at school. How to teach and how to assess students are made at school and national level rather than by individual teachers themselves. You don't determine what to teach, you don't determine how to assess and what to cover. What determines the school and the state determine because it is reflecting what is needed in the market. Nowadays, there is a cry of educational enterprises delivering the graduates below the expectation. So, when we are trying to find out as a society what do we need at large, we are trying to reflect managerial teacher professionalism. The third aspect of teacher is so-called collaborative teacher professionalism. This is closer, that is a profession which is closer is reflecting a closer working between teachers and other members of the school workforce. As such, a teacher, assistants, as well as professionals from other services work together with the teacher to ensure that children and young people are getting education. That's, in other words, we don't regard a school as the authority institution organization which is solely responsible for providing education. You acknowledge that education is obtained in school, but also by collaborating with other stakeholders. In a collaborative, a teacher strike a balance between what he teaches and what is can be accessed again from other stakeholders. In other words, you assume teaching as a process through which you can seek as assistance from people out of the school premises, out of the education industry. We talk about how parents, we talk about how peers, we talk about how other institutions like mosques, churches can help to ensure that children get education which is needed. And the last one is so-called democratic teacher professionalism. This entails working not only with other professional groups but all other stakeholders as well as including business, parents, and the people. This means being sensitive to a wider range of stakeholders, some of whose voices have traditionally been silent in education decision making. In other words, you give the society to dictate what they need from education, and because they are part and parcel of the stakeholders, but also they are the chief determinant of what they need from educational process. And that aspect, let's think of the ambit of judging a teacher. How do we, the scope, ambit is just a scope. I'll talk about a scope of judging a teacher. How do we judge a teacher as competent and professional? Of course, competence and the morality are two aspects which will help you to judge the professional aspect of any teacher in any educational institutions, whether in the basic education level or tertiary education institutions, whatsoever. Whoever, because it's the teacher by profession, we expect to see competence and the morality aspect in undertakings. So competence, what do you mean by competence? Competence professional teachers possess virtue of intelligent application of education theories, knowledge, and understanding of effective practice. We have discussed very much and intensively on the issue of virtue. Virtue. This is the goodness, the good conduct. We see that a competent professional teacher possesses a virtue of intelligence. He will actually enlist intelligence in the process of teaching through application of education theories, how he applies theory, education theories, and knowledges and understanding of effective teaching process. He will combine theories and other strategies to ensure that teaching takes place effectively. And of course, a competence in this area this arena implies conduct in accordance with established occupational standards and the conduct appropriate to professional and other occupational processes is publicly observable and accountable in the principles and the practice. So you see, a competence covers doing things accordance with the standards, but also appropriate to their profession. Let's talk an example of a competent carpenter. We expect him to show the way he will be drilling nails properly, straightforward, but the way he's hammering the hammer on top of the nail. So the competence covers the issues of conduct according to the rules established, but also conduct according to appropriateness of the profession itself. And from that point, let us see in the country of Tanzania how Tanzania has worked to ensure that there is a sufficient supply of teacher in the education system. I'm sure, very much sure, that with the previous class sessions, and especially with my junior lecturer, you discussed very much the historical background of teacher professional development in Tanzania. And even in the assignment which I gave you regarding the, of course, in the seminar questions in the presentation, I was assigned you to present on the historical development of education of professional development in Tanzania, and most of you have attempted, but I saw that there are some lacunas, some gaps which I have to fill. One is what were the strategies which was ensured in place to make sure teacher supply was enough in the schools, because we know that immediately after independence, there was shortage of teacher workforce in the education system. So what did the Mwalim do to ensure that there is supply of teachers? This is what I want to discuss you in top of what you have already covered in your presentation. One is there was a move to train teachers locally to meet the shortfalls following adaptation of education for self-reliance in 1967. That's in other words, there was the reparation process to prepare teachers locally. There was there was local local institutions which were responsible to prepare teachers, especially after education for self-reliance in 1967. Another strategy which was employed in the press is to deploy primary school leavers and train them for job to implement 1970s declaration on the UPE. UPE is just universal primary education. By 1977, that was the government deliberation to ensure that at least 40,000 teachers are developed and deployed in schools for fulfilling the need of manpower supply. Another strategy which is important in place is increase the number of student teacher in teacher colleges. There was purposive decision to ensure that teacher students were enrolled in increased number in teacher colleges. Another strategy was to liberate teacher education. That's another way to talk about liberation. We talk about how to engage the private sector in the process of preparing teachers. So there was also a private teacher education colleges, which was also possible to prepare teachers to cover. So another strategy was to retain sole responsibility of quality control and assurance, as well as curriculum development to the government. The government partly privatized, allowed private sector to engage in preparing teachers, but they were responsible as government to ensure that the quality is attained. Government was responsible to ensure that curriculum is quality of quality, and therefore no one could tamper with the curriculum for preparing teachers. So these are some of the strategies which were employed by the government after independence to ensure that there is enough supply of teachers in the educational system. Okay, having said that, let's see teacher professional development in Tanzania. What is being done in developing teacher profession in Tanzania? Of course, teacher development is the process and activities designed to promote professional knowledge, skills, and attitude of teachers. So when you define the teacher, what is teacher profession? For example, if I ask you what is teacher, what is teacher professional development? See, this is just a process. It's a process. It's a process and activities. So there are two things aspects you have to consider. It is a process, and also a process which involve activities towards promoting teachers professionally, with the requisite knowledges, skills, and attitudes to ensure that they can perform and improve learning process. The purpose of professional development in education is to build and transform strong knowledge through teachers with the ambition to achieve excellence in education. So what we are doing in teacher professional development is to ensure that we improve. Because nowadays, I've said in the number of classes earlier, nowadays our strive now is to achieve quality education for all, not just matter of education for, but quality education, because it is a quality education which will make a difference between developing and developing countries. We can only achieve this gap. We can minimize this gap if we can invest. We can invest in quality, delivering quality education. So the outside people are graduating without getting employment, partly is because of the quality of education which they get in the education system. And therefore, the purpose of professional development, anyhow, is to ensure that we build and transform strong knowledge of teachers so that they can actually improve learning process. And therefore, it's very, very important attempt in a educational process. In order to be effective, teacher professional development should address the core areas of teaching content, curriculum, seminary. In other words, what is covered in teacher development? We want to develop teachers in terms of ensuring that they deliver required content, curriculum is appropriate, assessment is done effectively, but also instruction, the process of teaching and learning process is adhered by teachers in the way it's supposed to, in effective and a competent manner. And therefore, Let's see some of the issues teacher professional development in Tanzania. According to Education Training Policy in 1995, which is the outdated one, because currently now we have Education Training Policy of 2014, which was which will repair this one, the 1995, and this policy 1995, it is stressed, it explains that teacher professional development constitutes an important element for quality and efficient education. So we talk about quality and efficient education. We talk about a teacher professional development. That's where we take teacher in service, the whole process of in service training, the whole process of pre-service training, the whole process of how they are exported to international environment, how they engage in research and other activities to ensure that they can competently teach our students and manage the learning process. Teachers need to be exposed regularly to new methodologies and approaches of teaching. That's actually what is being done with the teacher professional development. We expose teachers because there's various changes taking place because of advancement in globalization. We talk there are innovations, massive integration of technologies in the area of education, and therefore the teacher who has been in college 10 years ago is almost outdated and obsolete. Therefore, unless you expose him to new methodologies, how he can engage technology in the process, we can ensure that he can currently deliver to the expectation of the society and the institution. Therefore, it's very important that through teacher professional development, we ensure that we expose our teachers regularly to the new development in the arena of teaching process. The teaching effectiveness of every servicing teacher will thus need to be developed through planned and known schedule of in-service training programs. Wow, teacher professional development, I'm just continuing, and therefore I'm sure you are getting along with what I'm saying. The whole process from the teacher professional development. I've talked about with a good teacher, I've talked about the competence and the moral aspect. Okay, in-service training and the lead training shall be compulsory in order to ensure teacher quality. This is stressed in the educational policies. The repealed one and even this the current one, they insistently explain the need for professional development. That there must be in-service and retraining. The training that is those who are already employed can of course be taken to other training to ensure that they are updated in the methodology and the delivery strategies, how they integrate technology in the teaching process. So in service training and the training should be compulsory in order to ensure that teacher quality profession. In other words, it must be in the planning. It must be in the planning to ensure that teachers are exposed to new technology on a regular basis. If you're head of school or the other education officers, you have to ensure that in your planning, yearly planning, there must be an aspect of teacher professional development budget, or at least in a cycle to ensure that teachers are being taken to the training to update their skills and the knowledge. So the effectiveness of the teacher depends on the following. When we talk about who is the effective teacher, and about effectiveness, talk about how the teacher can achieve goals within specific time. We talk about effectiveness. Efficiency is about cost saving, but effectiveness how you timely meet your goals in a short time possibly. Therefore, an effective teacher who can achieve the goals in minimum time possible, we expect to be first. He has to be competent. He has to be efficient. That is cost sensitive. We talk about competence academically and pedagogically. You have to meet the goals and objectives on time. Efficient about ability, workload, and the commitment within the feasible school budget. And also, third, teaching and the learning resources and the methods should be also part. How do you use the learning resources available and the methods in place? It's also part of effectiveness. And lastly, support from education managers and the supervisors. The way you get support from education managers and the supervisors is also a determinant of your teaching effectiveness. And therefore, teacher professional development provide opportunity for teachers to achieve the following. When we implement teacher professional development efficiently, then the teacher is expected to benefit from the following. First, he or she will explore new roles because we expose him to a new methodologies. Second, he or she will develop new instructional techniques. And third, he or she will define their practices. And lastly, he or she will broaden his educational scope as as an educator, but also as an individual. And having said that, let's see the general factors for teacher professional development. What are the factors for teacher professional development? First, we have almost we have almost three factors. We have conceptual factor, contextual factors, and the methodological factors. By conceptual factor, what I'm referring is that a teacher there must be personal motivation to grow professionally. Okay, conceptual factors, what I'm referring that there must be a deliberate for personal motivation to grow professionally. But contextual factor on teacher development, there must be school, leadership, organizational culture, external agencies, and the extent to which such based initiatives are supported will determine the so-called contextual factors. And then methodological factors, this refer to process or procedure that have been designed to support teacher professional development. These are factors for teacher professional development. And I've said there's conceptual factors, contextual factors, and the methodological factors. The conceptual factor talk about your personal motivation. If you don't want to grow, you want to grow. Contextual factor, these are the environment which you live will determine how you will be developed professionally. But also lastly, methodology placed in place, implemented in place will also determine your professional development. Almost to the point and to the closing of this lecture, I would also capture this one, the so-called interactive system model for teacher professional development as a functional of interaction between and among 5 key players. Also, we'll talk about it, the interactive system model for teacher professional development. This refers to a simplified framework which will just show you who are the parties involved in the whole process of developing teachers professionally. Actually, we have almost 5 areas to consider. I will refer them as clusters of stakeholders. First is the ministry itself. Ministry responsible for teacher education is also responsible to develop the policy initiative for teacher development. Second are universities and the colleges which are delivering teacher education. It's also another cluster of stakeholders to determine professional development. Also, we have schools and we have the communities and the teachers themselves. These are all 5 clusters for determining interactive model of teacher professional development. In other words, if we draw a simplified model, simplified framework to see how the development is being conducted, actually we'll see these 5 parties involved in the process. And therefore, that makes the end of my lecture, and I hope with this you will at least integrate and summarize what has been taught in the class. Especially, I know most of the course content has been covered with my junior, and they had a very good time in interacting with him. And I've received the feedback. He has worked very hard, and we are looking to see you working very hard, and of course, competent in answering your examination. And remember, I wish you on behalf of my colleague, I wish you a very good time in your examination on Friday. And also, what I will urge you is that make sure that you make a thorough discussion with your colleagues. Make the discussions, make sure you understand all the issues regarding comma careness, the so-called ethics, positive, normative, descriptive, analytical, and in fact, our examination is widely sampled. So don't leave any slide untouched. Go through all slides, go through the seminar questions, how you present in the classroom, but also the feedback from teachers. And I wish you the best when you'll be making follow-up on this YouTube video to ensure that you can achieve your goal. Thank you very much, and you will enjoy your day. Welcome, Guru. My